The NSFW Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Welcome to the NSFW Show. Coming up in today's episode, we tell you which technology is leading the biggest wealth creation in modern history, why Meta is in trouble again for its chatbots and their conversations with kids, and how Grok's spicy video setting is making inappropriate deepfakes of Taylor Swift. This is something that feels like it's never ending.
Every week, a different inappropriate Grok thing. We're also going to chat with a health expert and tech founder about what we can do to use data from wearables to improve the lives of Canadians. And Marc Saltzman has some back-to-school tech picks, including an affordable TV for your student's dorm room. And I'm also going to talk a little bit later about self-checkout tellers and the things that you may like and may not like about them and how they're changing over time. But first, let's get to tech headlines.
Newsfeed.
Bloomberg has reported that the U.S. government is considering taking a stake in the American chip manufacturer Intel, a company that's been having a really hard time keeping up, with the potential move being seen as helping to secure U.S. chip manufacturing against some of the competitors over in Asia.
Yeah, so I think one thing that's so strange with this and a lot of other Trump stuff is this would normally be seen as a kind of left-wing move, right? So it feels a little unusual coming from Republicans to be making these economic interventions like this. That said, certainly the Trump administration can't be accused of having a super coherent philosophy guiding it normally. So I guess it shouldn't be that surprising. But what is a bit strange is that Trump recently called for Intel's CEO to immediately resign. Apparently because of ties to China or something like that. Who knows why he thinks what he does. But anyway, called for him to immediately resign. Then they had a White House meeting. The two of them met at the White House and said, oh, they had a constructive meeting. And now this. So it seems to be like a repeating script that this is how you get places with Trump. So opinions must change pretty fast in the Trump White House because they're all happy and friendly now. And keep in mind another thing that's in the background of some of this are other really interventionist things like how Trump got U.S. chip makers NVIDIA and AMD to agree to give the U.S. federal government a 15% cut to allow semiconductor sales to China. So anyway, this is not the kind of intervention you're supposed to see with what is allegedly a conservative party.
You know, just when you were explaining the moment where Trump was getting a little bit hostile towards Intel's CEO and then said that they had a meeting and then things were better, it reminded me that this is kind of like every single one of President Trump's relationships. It kind of goes like that. Like, hey, we fought, but then they came over and then we're good and then they fight again. It does feel a little
you
high
got to bully
schoolish.
them first and then have them come back. And it's just it's such a strange dynamic. And again, very unlike any president in recent memory, at least, not any that I have experienced.
Thankfully,
that's for sure.
Thankfully. All right. So another story that runs well in parallel with that story is a story that's been reported by CNBC, although I've seen this everywhere, and that is that the AI boom is quickly becoming the largest wealth creation event in modern history. We did talk last episode about the incredible sums of money being invested into artificial intelligence, and just this year, AI startups have created dozens of new billionaires. Some of these people, Jeff, are still only in their 20s. So a massive, I think we could say almost bubble. And I know you're going to talk about that in a minute.
Absolutely. And as we talk about each time, you know, wealth creation is great, but not when it goes to like a small subset of people who already have more money than they'd ever need for their entire lives. So it's I don't see this benefiting all that many people, and none other, as you hinted at, none other than OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman has said that he thinks AI is in an economic bubble right now. And he did an interesting interview with The Verge. He talked about how insane it is that you have these AI startups that might just be 2 or 3 people and a cool idea, and they're getting enormous, insane evaluations. And this is how bubbles happen: the exaggerated evaluations, and then when there's not actually the money behind them, but the bubble bursts when they can't actually deliver on their promises. So Sam Altman said, and I quote, in terms of these enormous evaluations for these tiny little companies, "That's not rational behavior. Someone's going to get burned out there, I think." So it'll be interesting to see what happens when the bubble bursts. And frankly, it's better for this bubble to burst sooner rather than later. There's so much crazy emotion and just really delusion at certain points. So the sooner the bubble bursts, the sooner we can all get back to some rational behavior.
It's interesting, too, when you think about Sam Altman. We've talked a lot, especially on the last episode, about ChatGPT, of course, the makers of ChatGPT, that it is the organization OpenAI, and Sam Altman is the CEO. And
co-founded with Elon Musk.
Yes. And that actually brings me to my next point, is that I feel like Sam Altman more and more is starting to look like the adult in the room. And speaking of Elon Musk, they kind of got into it a little bit on X recently, and Sam Altman was calling him out. Sam Altman is sort of, I think, filling this void, or this empty space that exists among some of these tech CEOs, to try to be, if anything, at least a little bit of a voice of reason. Although, I mean, OpenAI has its own issues, but more and more I am seeing him, I think, try to step up.
Yeah, and I think he does stand out that way. And I've read a ton. He's actually great at giving interviews and stuff like that. And it's not all like fluff stuff trying to promote his company. He talks intelligently about how AI is going to transform things. And, like I said, for him, he's an interesting character to come out and talk about this bubble, and to point this out as just not being rational behavior aligns with my perception exactly. So, like, as I was saying, we need more rational behavior out there. We are caught up in a strange whirlwind of emotion that's being manipulated, not just by political leaders like Trump, but by Russian bots, by social media, by crazy AI. And we do society a favor by taking a moment and taking a deep breath and going, what are we doing all this for again? And how can we make sure we do it right? Because we've talked about so many downsides to it that if more rational minds could prevail, that would certainly be beneficial.
I think that's one of the things I worry about a little bit, is that the bar is so low that I'm starting to rationalize people who traditionally I would think were a little bit on the villain side, but it's changed so much. Now, speaking of accountability, we absolutely do need more of that. And unfortunately, this next story is not going to inspire that. Reuters just published an article talking about how Meta AI's rules seem to let its chatbots be romantic and have sensual conversations with children. Once again, only after being found out, Meta said that this should never have been allowed, and that it would remove the rules that make it permissible for its chatbots to flirt and engage in romantic role play with kids. Which, Jeff, begs the question, I touched on this last week, why are these chatbots doing that in the first place?
And yeah, how would you not know? How many times can they say that should never have been allowed? The report from Reuters makes for some pretty creepy reading. Actually, they've got like how they lay out basically what the AI should think and what's a good response versus a bad response. Ooh, it's very cringy and weird, so it's worth taking a look at. But the same report from Reuters also references like false medical information and other bizarre shortcomings. And it looks like the senator for Missouri in the States, who's also the chair of the Senate subcommittee on crime and counterterrorism, he's going to launch an investigation through that body. And he's been on Twitter saying, like, how are we letting this happen? Just like you and I have been saying lots. And so he's asked for a bunch of information from Meta, and Meta has until September 19th to provide a bunch of requested documents. So we'll see where this goes from that point. But as an aside, would just like to note, this is the same Meta that recently proudly announced that their new advisor on how to prevent bias in their AI systems is this conservative influencer who's behind some of the biggest anti-DEI, anti-pride, anti-climate change campaigns. And, I think a balanced perspective is important, but we too often look for a balanced perspective by pitting a right-wing extremist against a left-wing extremist. And we've lost sight that it's people in the middle that we need to balance this out with. So that's a very discouraging appointment. It rolls out of some of the things that Trump has been trying to do. So, they're all trying to make these moves to pacify the president a little bit. So this is just another one, it seems.
Speaking of being in a bubble, and this isn't so much a financial bubble, but I think just in sort of a physical bubble, that's the way I see Mark Zuckerberg a little bit, especially these days. I don't know if you saw the story where they were talking about the fact that he's essentially taken over a small neighborhood in the California community where he lives and bought a bunch of houses. So it's kind of like a compound. There's even a school that is running there as well. He also has pretty much what is a bunker in Hawaii on one of his properties. And so I feel like he increasingly is just out of touch with how the average person lives. And then he hires people around him like this. And you start to wonder, is there any coming back for Mark Zuckerberg? Or is he just kind of full on in the evil villain era of his life?
Well, it certainly makes sense that they like building compounds and stuff like the billionaires island there in Miami and Zuckerberg stuff, because these people are, I hesitate to say this, but they're almost as much cult leaders as they are business leaders at this point. There, again, so much emotion involved, so much crazy fluffing about future stuff. In the meantime, all these people are getting rich around them, and it's a totally distortive kind of cultish feeling I get when I read how these guys behave. And some are better than others for sure, but Zuckerberg is just absolutely cringeworthy.
Yeah, a total. I don't think saying a cult is unreasonable. I think that's actually quite fair, especially when it comes to Elon. I think that's definitely a little cultish. Okay, Absolutely. So we've talked about online age verification a lot on the show. You should definitely check out Jeff's previous TheOtherMac segment on the subject. That was a really good one. It looks like the U.S. Supreme Court has denied an application to challenge Mississippi's new law that requires age identification to use not just adult sites, but social media sites as well. This is, of course, similar to the new law in the UK that I think we discussed as well. Yeah. The group asking for the law to be stopped is Net Choice, which represents organizations including Snapchat, YouTube, and, all roads lead back to Mark Zuckerberg, Meta.
Yeah, absolutely. And the age verification stuff isn't going away. It's being handled in a bunch of different ways in different states, which is interesting. It was Brett Kavanaugh, I believe, is the Supreme Court Justice who said not you can't intervene right now. But in that decision, he said he does actually think that Net Choice has a totally valid case. He just doesn't think that it needs to be handled right this moment. So it looks like Mississippi's law will go into effect, and Net Choice will pursue this, and that will get accepted. It looks like essentially it would be accepted at court in the future, but not now. So just another story for us to keep our eyes on. And staying with that theme, actually, Elon Musk's SpaceX is trying to block the state of Virginia's plan to bring fiber internet to its residents. And so SpaceX runs Starlink. And so SpaceX has said the federal grant money that would be involved in the state of Virginia's fiber internet rollout, or at least some of it, should instead be given to Elon Musk's Starlink. And it's another case of the intense crossover, like very questionable, too close involvement between major U.S. corporations and the U.S. federal government, because part of what SpaceX is relying on here is the Trump administration's rewriting of the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Grant Program, And I think that was maybe even started under Biden or something similar. And then they had to change everything because it was Biden. So they just changed things for the sake of changing it. But that's playing a key role here. And it is what SpaceX is trying to get at those funds, even though they get enough money from the U.S. government as it is. But their argument is essentially that, fiber is so yesterday. We can reach hard to reach areas much easier than that. And the argument against that is, well, fiber is robust and relatively permanent, and it's not run by Elon Musk, so it's not going to get turned off if Mississippi votes to not have Twitter anymore.
Exactly. I think that's the most obvious argument of them all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense that you really do want to stay away from working, I think, with Elon Musk in a scenario like this, where he could just decide one day to turn things off. Right. And people will say, oh, he wouldn't do that. But I don't think we're 100% sure about that. And speaking of Elon,
in Ukraine, like he has done it, he's on the record of doing that. I think his biographer there talks about that a bit. And so he's certainly not above doing things like that. I don't think he's done something like that in the States, but with the States fast becoming well, maybe not so fast, but certainly on its way to becoming more of an oligarchy than ever. He's one of the big oligarchs. This is how things work in those kind of states. All you have to do is look at their friends in Russia and you'll see exactly how that stuff goes.
Yeah. And, not to go into this too far, but he does have a long history of saying things and then doing something entirely different. Like Elon Musk has done this over the years where he said, for example, that, he would never kick people off of X because he believes in free speech. But then we know he went and kicked people off. So that's just, one example. And continuing talking about him, the Consumer Federation of America, along with more than a dozen other consumer protection groups, has sent a letter to the FTC and U.S. Attorney General asking for Musk's Grok to be investigated after its new Imagine AI tool has generated images and video that have created topless deepfake videos of Taylor Swift without even being asked to do so.
That's the crazy point. And when I read that, I'm like, oh, okay, what do you mean? Because a lot of the horror stories we hear about AI come from people purposely poking and prodding and trying to break it, which is totally legitimate. Exactly what you should be doing. If somebody's doing that, there's some kid somewhere figuring it out. So, it's like obviously Grok's problems are far from being just limited to this. But a big factor here is the new Imagine tool, Grok's Imagine tool, that lets you generate AI images and videos. And the fact that it has this spicy mode that you can turn on that seems to encourage adult content, like vaguely softcore pornish kind of level content. And as we've said before, what stands between a kid getting this and an adult is that both of them just have to check a pop-up box that lets them select their age and verify that they're 18 or over, and then you're in spicy mode. So it's just again total dereliction of duty for how you would try to protect kids against this, and just a creepy, weird thing. Again, just I don't know why your AI chatbot at this point in time having a spicy mode doesn't seem like a real valuable feature to me.
Yeah, this is the thing that I don't understand. Like, first of all, when we think about Grok, I will say, it's been interesting to watch Grok on X, for example. We know that people are asking Grok to tell the truth or as close to the truth as possible about certain stories. We know there's been a lot of cases where Grok has been, in some cases, racist and biased. We know that Grok has a lot of issues. So to go and weeks later, after you had so many issues with Grok, to say that, hey, when it comes to creating videos, we are going to introduce this spicy mode. And we could have all predicted where this was going to go, right, Jeff? Like, it's not a secret. This is going to go wrong very quickly.
Yeah. And it's just in terms of the AI, people asking AI to explain why it did things, an important thing to keep in mind with that is it's the same as how AI does everything else. There's not necessarily any particular insight. That AI isn't even necessarily telling you why it did things. It's trying to complete some thoughts that make sense relative to the question you asked with the information it has. And it doesn't necessarily know to go looking in its program to try to figure out the real reason. So who knows, the reasons it gives for this kind of misbehavior can be just as made up as the other 10% of hallucinations, I think it was, that ChatGPT-5 has. So it's in a very weird place that it's hard to even investigate this stuff, and the level of transparency with some of these AI companies isn't exactly ideal either. And
okay, so
did you read about the process that this journalist used to get the...
Yeah. I was just going to jump into that because
Okay,
I think that this is the piece that I think we really need to explain to people when they say that no one asked Grok to do this, because people may be wondering, well, did Grok just go off and do that on its own? So the journalist described the process that resulted in this topless video, and it consisted of an initial image prompt of Taylor Swift celebrating Coachella with the boys. And then when the journalist tapped one of the resulting images and decided to enable spicy mode to see what Grok imagined would create, it generated a video of Swift tearing off her clothes and dancing topless in a thong for a crowd of people. So what has happened here is that we see how this prompt, where it has a singer, in this case Taylor Swift, celebrating with the boys. Most of us would assume that, maybe she's, having a drink or singing like she might do in the video. But all of a sudden we get to the point where Taylor Swift is tearing off her clothes and dancing topless in a thong. I mean, this is where things just kind of cross that line. And Jeff, if we can just kind of tie this back to the previous story, as I read this, people might remember that conversation that we had about Starlink and the fact that, hey, maybe the reason that Elon Musk shouldn't be in charge of infrastructure for people to have connectivity is that he is a man-child who isn't even responsible enough to introduce an AI generation tool like this that is obviously gone rogue so quickly.
Yeah, one of the weird things I read too. Again, the whole thing seems like another example of Elon Musk's narcissistic God complex trying to create an AI in his own image, is that you can't actually, or from what I've seen so far, there are claims that you can't actually get it to generate like male nudes, just topless females, of course, because why would there be any kind of equivalency there? Because this is not some neutral AI. This is Elon Musk's little baby, and he wants him to be a weird little perv like Elon Musk seems to be.
Yeah. I mean, it is very, very disturbing to see how in many ways Elon Musk wants the responsibility of exploring other planets, of infrastructure in the US. But there's this sort of really odd, childlike pervert inside of him that seems to come out in all these unusual ways that you can't really escape when he goes down this rabbit hole. Because if there's any place that I think you really see the true Elon Musk, it's on X, right? Like he's revealing himself on X, and that is the place where he is probably as authentic as he can be. And that's where he really shines as a total weirdo, and very, very disturbing to see this.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. I'm sure we'll have more in the news next week about exactly this sort of thing again too, as they claim like, oh, that shouldn't have happened like that. We're sorry, we fixed it. And then they have to fix it again and again and again.
All right. So moving on from Elon Musk, Jeff is going to talk about self-checkout tellers, and that's coming up this week in The Other Mac.
The Other Mac.
Well, love them or hate them, something that most people have an opinion about are self-checkout tellers. Although they've been around in some form since the 80s, self-checkouts have gone from being a relative rarity to near ubiquity in the past couple decades. But the trend does seem to be sliding back a bit in the past couple years. Now, the benefits to retailers are pretty obvious, perhaps primarily the fact that you can hire one person to oversee a handful of self-checkout lanes when you would have needed, say, 5 employees to instead run 5 conventional checkouts. And I've seen this pushed to the absolute breaking point. at times with just 1 or 2 attendants being responsible for as many as 10 checkouts each, which is ludicrous and such a bad customer experience, basically just an anti-customer move. So there are things that will tick people off about self-checkouts that could be corrected, but the issues with self-checkouts are many, with shortcomings on both the customer and the retailer side. As a customer, I find the frequency with which I need to wait to get a store attendee's intervention to proceed with my purchase to be the biggest fail point, and it seems to happen far too often. There can also be issues with how to scan certain items, how to take advantage of specials, or figure out which codes to enter for things like produce. And there's some major design flaws too for some of these when it comes to being able to load a large amount of groceries, for example, in the proper place after scanning. Some of them, the bag holder mechanisms don't seem to do a good job at the only thing they're there for, which is to hold bags securely. So again, lots of improvements that could be made. But on the retailer side, the downsides include things like some serious issues with theft, or shrinkage as they call it, including things like skip scanning or customers playing dumb to take extra advantage of offers and a variety of other scams that just wouldn't work with a human cashier. Now, many of these things are very easy to do without anyone noticing, and maybe part of why it's happening so much. And thieves who are caught in the act can feign innocence by simply declaring that they made an understandable error while scanning, and whoops, didn't mean to do that. Now, studies vary in their estimations, and companies are loath to release any data on this subject, but something like 1 in 15 or maybe even more of self-checkout transactions involve theft, which not only hurts retailers' bottom lines, it makes our groceries more expensive, and it contributes to the inflation that's making it increasingly hard for people to make ends meet. Indeed, shoplifting has been increasing in more ways than just via self-checkouts in recent years, whether out of desperation or some sort of moral collapse, I'm not sure, but seeing security guards in stores has become very common. And things like that impact the customer experience negatively for most people, especially when combined with actions like checking receipts as you leave, which is basically like being treated as a criminal because the company that you're buying from is trying to make more money by making you do the job of the people they used to hire. So that's just not working for me either. And interestingly, legal experts say, unless you've signed up for a membership where you've agreed to receipt checks like Costco, that checking receipts, it's legally unenforceable unless the customer has been witnessed stealing something. And so some people are pushing back against that as well. Companies like Walmart, Canadian Tire, and other retailers have been reducing the number of self-checkout machines over the past couple of years, and frankly, I'd like to see the trend continue. Having adequately staffed, human-operated checkout lines is often just a much better experience, especially when you have to purchase more than a couple items. And the apparent self-checkout combination of not necessarily saving the retailer all that much money when you consider theft and security costs, while also making things cost more for customers because of that theft and making the experience worse, simply is not a very compelling situation. Let us know what you think of self-checkout tellers on our social media feeds. I'm TheOtherMac. We'll see you next week.
The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
A new report from NiaHealth found that 88% of Canadians are missing treatable health risks, even as more and more of us are using fitness trackers and other technology that are delivering record levels of personal data. To share some ideas on how we can close this gap, Amber spoke with nurse practitioner Tanya Turkers, who is the clinical director and co-founder of NiaHealth.
That's science.
Tanya, thank you so much for joining me. I am really interested in this topic about wearables and data and how we're using that data to ensure that Canadians live a healthier life. Tell me a little bit about some of the research that just came out from your organization.
Oh, I'd love to. First of all, thank you so much for having me. This is a topic that I love to talk about, especially because, like you said, the research is growing and people are so interested in what to do with all of this data. So we recently released the Blind Spot Canada's Health Data Paradox, as you mentioned. And what we found is that 88% of our members uncovered at least one previously undetected health risk that they could actually do something about. And I think that's really key, is the fact that they could take steps to change, reduce, mitigate this health risk. We also found that about 40% of Canadians use a health tracking device. So whether it be a ring or a watch, they are collecting this data, but it doesn't always get shared. And maybe if it does get shared, their clinician, only about 15% of, I think the study was based specifically on family doctors, actually looked at that data and were able to incorporate it into their care plan. I worked in primary care for quite a long time, and I was actually even surprised that it was that high, because when I think about a normal clinic flow, there isn't really like a place where that fits intuitively in how you run your practice. So I think that's really interesting as well. I could continue on and on about the fact that, like, we found a number of our members had kidney strain, again, early, actionable. 23% had early risks for diabetes. And we know from primary care, from healthcare, that if we can intervene early, sometimes it'll never actually progress to diabetes, or that at least we can prolong it for a significant amount of time.
It's so interesting because not only am I fascinated with this subject, and of course, like every Canadian, I want to see us have better access to healthcare in this country and preventative care as well. But also, as someone who wears one of these devices, I've been wearing a Whoop band for many, many years. And I have a family member who also wore a Whoop band for a really long time. We had two totally different experiences. He brought in all of his data to his doctor, and his doctor was not interested in seeing any of it. Whereas I brought my data into a surgeon that I was meeting with, and she was incredible. She asked for access to all of the data. I printed everything out for her. She took it and she helped bump me up in terms of getting surgery more quickly, because she was able to show the significant impact that the health condition I had was having on my life. And, totally different scenarios. And I think that's happening everywhere across the country.
I think you're right. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that as clinicians, we are taught to look and care about the person first, and then care about the data. And I think that's a really good approach to healthcare, right? We want to be people-centered. And then it's about what question or can we ask the data, and what information can we get from the data. And I think your surgeon is just such a great example of, she's aware of what the data could show, and she was aware of what question to ask it and how that would impact your future care decisions. I would love to meet her. She sounds very, very cool in the way she was able to integrate things you were doing at home with how you presented to her, and she moved you up on the list.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I think, a perfect example of someone who really understood that she obviously couldn't be with me 24/7, but I had this treasure trove in many ways of data that really expressed what I was going through. And I think it's fair to say, I look at my mom, for example, she's almost 82. She wears an Apple Watch. Like, when we talk about wearables, we're not talking about just sort of a narrow group of Canadians anymore. There is widespread adoption of these wearables that are collecting health data 24/7.
Yes, it's interesting that you actually bring up your mom, because I think some of our very, very first wearables were decades ago, and it was to detect falls risks, right? So we were able to actually have somebody called if you fell, right? It would call your daughter, or it would call your neighbor. And we've advanced so far from there, and we can pull so much more information about maybe what your heart's doing, what's your oxygen doing. So there's pulling data from the device, but then there's also using the data in your device to improve your health. And that's one of the things that we are working on right now, actively in the thick of it, is how do we help our members and all Canadians understand how they can pull their exercise information. So I don't know if you've taken a look at how it can break down your exercise information into your different training zones.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So we will take that information and say, okay, well, when you're working in this training zone, we can, it should be impacting your metabolic health, which should help to impact your hemoglobin A1C. And we saw in your last lab test that might be a risk, a diabetes risk in the future. So let's focus on that zone 2. And that is a really cool way for the individual to use it, so that not only are they providing data out, but they're able to action their data every single day.
So what I think so fascinating about what you're doing right now, and I want to hear more about the company, is that I speak to a lot of tech founders, many of them in the healthcare space, but you have, like you've mentioned, that experience as a nurse working in healthcare, and now you're combining that with this experience at a technology company. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yes, for sure. So my background is I'm a nurse practitioner. I worked in family practice for over a decade. And what I found was that sometimes you could kind of see the writing on the wall that this person was going to be experiencing chronic diseases, maybe at a relatively young age. And you just felt like you couldn't quite intervene early enough. And I think part of that is because this is how healthcare works. And it's okay. It's supposed to work this way, but you're supposed to go in when you feel unwell or you have a problem. And when we founded NiaHealth, we really wanted to start before that, so that we weren't intervening once someone felt unwell or had a problem. You're intervening when you were going, oh, there's the writing on the wall. And how do I share that with a member in a way that is impactful to them? That it's not just me as the healthcare provider relying on a decade of experience saying there's writing on the wall, but they can actually own that information and go, oh, I see it too. Now I'm going to own how to action it with the support of a healthcare team that really has their interest in mind. And that sounds cliche, but what I mean by that is that when we are in a consult with one of our members, we're saying, okay, here's the data. What does your life look like? What's actually helpful to action this data? Because it's a very different conversation if someone has just had a new baby and they really can't sleep through the night. And we're saying, oh, if you could just sleep better, here's how your data would improve. Well, that's completely unrealistic. So by actually understanding their story, we can help them to action their data in a way that feels empowering, not impossible.
So what does the experience look like if someone becomes a member? What does it look like in terms of how you, I think, fill what I would see as a huge gap in healthcare today, which is sort of the connection between the data and, like you said, taking action on that data?
Yes. So if someone comes to NiaHealth, they are offered over 150 different biomarkers. So that can be lab-based tests, VO2 max, DEXAs. And then what we do is we collate that data along with their story, their health history, their wearable data, and we present it to them in a dashboard that they can navigate. And so that really is that ownership piece. That's been a huge learning for me, is that the way that we consume information is so different than the way we consumed information, like even 4 or 5 years ago. And it really impacts people differently when they can see it in a way that is congruent with how they normally access information in their daily life, which is on a computer or on their phone, rather than being like handed a PDF saying, here are all your lab tests, right? This really resonates a lot more. And then from there in their dashboard, an action plan is created. And all of this is curated by a nurse practitioner, so by a member of my team. And then they meet with an NP for 30 minutes and are able to go through this information. And from there, we fine tune. So I often say to people, we do our best to make this personalized, but nothing quite beats sitting down with you and having you say, there's no way I'm doing that, or let me give you more context. And as soon as someone does that, you can just make it come to life in a different way for them.
So is this a replacement for someone's family doctor? Is it enhancement? Does it work alongside? You know, I'm just thinking again, if we use the scenario of my mom, who's almost 82, she's on a wait list for a family doctor here in Prince Edward Island. And last time she called, I think they were clearing the list from a few years ago. So she figures she'll never have a doctor. So how does it fit into what Canadians are experiencing right now in terms of access to having a doctor in the first place?
one of my absolute favorite questions. As you know, I'm in British Columbia, so very similar stories, I think, to what you're saying with your mom's story. And it's really hard. Nia is not a replacement for your family doctor, your primary care provider. We really are aiming to try and complement and work alongside. And having said that, as people are struggling for access, we really do want to partner with them to help support them in making good choices about their health now, so that they can maybe avoid even needing to access the healthcare system super regularly in the future.
Yeah, I think, again, we need all the tech and innovation that we can get right now in Canada. There are shortages in every province and territory across the country. So certainly I think technology can play such a powerful role. What is the long-term goal? Like, how do you see the company growing, the impact that you're able to have? Certainly this is a really important sweet spot, for lack of a more technical term, as far as what you're doing.
Yes. So we would love to see all Canadians have access to proactive healthcare. And we have created a best in class, best in Canada option for Canadians to access that. I think it is just so exciting to think. I told you my background is in rural primary care. So I have a soft spot for people who have to travel long distances to get any sort of access to care. And Canada is a really big country. So whether you are in Toronto or you are in Cranbrook or you are in the Yukon, you should be able to understand, access, and action evidence-informed preventative care. And that's what we're aiming to do for all Canadians.
And finally, because I think I'm going to get this question if I don't ask you as one of the last questions, people are probably thinking, okay, I think you said it already, but this can work alongside someone's existing wearable device. Also, what does the cost look like? Because of course, that's going to be top of mind for so many Canadians.
Yes. So we have 3 different packages. They're starting at $299. So we've really tried to keep the price point accessible for individuals. And then from there, you can choose a higher price package, or you can kind of build your own adventure and add on things that are the most relevant to you.
And that $299 is, what's the time frame of that?
Sorry, explain to the time frame,
like in terms of $299, is it per year, per month?
Oh, sorry, thank you. Yes, it's per year, and that would include 1 lap draw, and then of course your dashboard. And then if you want to add on additional things, you can. And I think one important thing is that the wearable devices can be integrated no matter what package you purchase, because that's just a baseline of understanding your health.
I love that. Thank you. Because again, I know people are really interested in access to especially preventative care. And I think if they're already wearing these devices, something like this makes perfect sense for them and can help them in the long run as well. Tanya, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you getting up nice and early and joining us today on the Amber Mac Show.
Thank you so much. Next time I am totally coming to PEI with you.
You are always welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya and Amber. Coming up after the break, Marc Saltzman is going to share his back-to-school tech shopping list for students of all ages.
You're listening to The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
It is almost time for back to school for students all across the country. I'm going to be doing my back to school tech picks coming up next week. But this week, our friend of the show and tech expert Marc Saltzman has a few picks to get started, including some new technology that is powered by artificial intelligence.
Talking Tech.
Thank you, Amber. Great to chat with you as always. Thank you for having me on. And agreed, AI, as you know, better than most everyone else, it's an incredibly important tool for students, I would argue for any age. And that includes indispensable AI platforms like Google Gemini. So this is built into devices like Pixel 9 smartphones. In fact, with the purchase of Pixel 9, students can try Gemini 2.5 Pro for 6 months for free. This is Google's most advanced AI model, ideal for homework help, exam prep, helping to write essays and book reports and presentations. Gemini Pro can even transform class notes into quizzes or summarize content and then turn them into podcast-style audio overviews. So cool. Store.google.com has more on Pixel 9 and Gemini 2.5 Pro. And speaking of smarts, the Asus ZenBook S14 is a sleek Copilot Plus AI PC. It's a powerful, reliable, and lightweight study companion that's just 1.1 centimeters thin. So you could just slip it into your backpack. You won't even feel it's there, yet it's durable thanks to its ceraluminum material, which is exclusive to some Asus laptops. It's got a 3K 120 hertz OLED touchscreen and super efficient Intel Core Ultra Series 2 processor that helps with battery life. In fact, this laptop lasts up to 27 hours between charges. And again, that Intel chip powers the AI too. Asus.com has more. And speaking of PCs, Intel Gamer Days is coming up August 25th through September 7th, where you can snag serious savings on Intel-powered laptops, desktops, accessories, and bundles. So great for a student's 9 to 5 school life, as well as their 5 to 9 playtime, maybe in their dorm room. You can head over to game.intel.com/gamerdays to learn more. But again, it's a great time of the year to get a gaming PC, whether it's a laptop or desktop, perfect for students who want to blow off a bit of steam after a long day in the classroom. So Kindle has expanded its e-reader lineup to deliver the first color Kindle for kids. It's simply called Kindle Colorsoft Kids. And along with the ability to read books, comics, and graphic novels in color, students can also use their fingertip to highlight passages in a textbook, like a virtual yellow marker, like we used to do for real and, damage the textbook so you couldn't resell it. Colorsoft Kids includes a fun protective cover for kids, 12 months of the Amazon Kids Plus service, which gives you a ton of free content, and a 2-year guarantee, which of course mom or dad's going to like that. There's also a parent dashboard so you can see what your kids are reading and for how long. And there are tools to help children with tough words as well. Amazon.ca has more on Kindle Colorsoft Kids. And speaking of fun, something to do after school, the Instax Mini Link 3. It's a handheld smartphone printer that instantly produces high quality, water-resistant photos on real film, sold separately. Once kids create these tangible memories with their friends or pics of pets and family, they can place them in a locker, in a binder, in the corner of a bedroom mirror, or give them to friends. Battery life tops 100 prints per charge. I also love that you can add fun filters, emojis, and text, or buy film with designs on them like sprinkles. Instaxcanada.ca has more on the Instax Mini Link 3 portable and wireless smartphone printer. So Staples has kicked off its back to school savings, both in store and at staples.ca, whether it's AI powered productivity tools for students or some tech to help flex their personal style. And that leads me to this. It's the JBL Junior 320 wireless on-ear kids headphones. They sound as good as they look. There's lots of colors to choose from, up to 50 hours of battery life. And they include parental controls with customizable volume and playtime settings. A wired version is only $29 from JBL. So you can head over to staples.ca to learn about that. And then finally, for dorm rooms or for families looking to upgrade their TV this fall, Hisense has a TV that reviewers are gushing about, and it's on sale. It's the U88QG AI TV. So along with AI, which I'll talk about in a moment, it features mini LED Pro and quantum dot technology for high brightness and vibrant color, respectively, and in sizes up to 100 inches. This 4K TV is also Google powered, so you can download apps, stream movies, or use your voice to ask for what to watch, or to use it as a smart speaker for homework help or control smart home devices. It's also great for gamers with 165 hertz refresh rate and FreeSync Premium Pro. More on that Hisense U88QG AI TV is at hisense-canada.com. So as you can see, Amber, no shortage of great gear for students of all ages and depending on your budget as well, from $29 all the way up to $17.99. So something for everyone.
Thanks, Mark. As I mentioned, I'll be doing my back to school tech picks next week. I'm going to dive into some back to school basics for things like better Wi-Fi. I think we can all use that. Looking forward to sharing it with all of you.
Now, a quick segment to round out today's show. Amber recently worked with Salesforce Canada at their Agentforce Tour Toronto event. She spoke with Salesforce EVP Adam Alfano to learn more about how AI agents can help businesses of all sizes, including small business owners looking for a bit of extra help.
Hi, I'm Amber Mack. I'm here with Adam Alfano from Salesforce. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure, Amber. It's great to see you.
My first question for you is, what opportunity does AI present to SMBs in Canada?
I deal with small businesses every day, and they have to do a lot with very little. And in a lot of cases, they're trying to punch up a little bit, be able to flex to bigger scale.
What are some of the highlights for people who perhaps couldn't be here today?
Well, look, we're on to Agentforce 3, and I think there's so many exciting things about Agentforce 3, a command center to manage your agents and humans in one place. As somebody doing this right now with sales development reps and sales development agents, to be able to kind of understand the productivity and work capacity and workflows and how these two parties are harmonizing and working together, and having that command center in one place really brings it all together.
What about agentic AI? This is also top of mind for so many SMBs in Canada. What would you say in terms of the value that can bring to their businesses?
You're adding a 24-hour digital worker to your incredible human workers, and the humans will handle context and relationships and the real critical thinking and the things they do well. But the AI is always working. I thought the young drivers example was amazing, that 70% of their inbound inquiries and scheduling are being done by an agent. So imagine how those human workers are now unleashed for more productive revenue generating accretive things. I mean, the possibilities are really endless.
Well, I know you're a popular guy today, so we really appreciate you stopping by and taking a few minutes. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Adam and Amber. If you have anything you'd like to share with us, you can find us online at Jeff MacArthur and at Amber Mac. If you'd like to leave a voicemail for our current Talkback segment, we're looking for your favorite tech movies and TV shows and what you love about the tech in them. And you can visit ambermactalkback.com to leave a message that will be included in the show. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week. Audio and video are great, but if you're looking for the most interesting tech stories and more in good old-fashioned text format, then you need to subscribe to our free Amber Mac weekly newsletter. Just go to ambermac.com/newsletter to sign up, and you'll get the latest tech news directly to your inbox every Tuesday morning.
You're listening to The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.